How's it going, Critter Family? Hope you all are doing well. Today we are going over a video by Beckman. This is just a little short one, real quick. Super simple way to stop a dog from jumping. My guess is that he's going to be kneeing the dog in the chest, or he might be popping them on a leash. He says here in the opening that this dog was almost rehomed because of this quote-unquote crazy behavior. So, I mean, I've seen some dogs with some crazy behavior, but I don't think that I think this is very normal behavior for a young dog. So, anywho, we're just going to go ahead and get started right away.
They were thinking about rehoming this dog because of this wildness. This is Bobby. Bobby's a jumper on guests. That's his biggest issue. We have one of his favorite trainers is showing up right now. He has not seen her. I'm going to show you by far, check him out, by far my favorite way to deal with.
He acts like this is like absolutely crazy, psychotic behavior that this dog is showing. This dog is not showing anything other than just an excitable dog. If they jump on guests, the number one way I usually work on dogs jumping is I'll have them in a harness or I'll have them on a regular collar. I'll put a leash on them. And if they jump on guests, then I will be the one who is standing there holding on to the dog. The dog, if you have a 6-foot leash and you let your dog get to the end of their 6-foot leash, then I would have the guest stand 7 feet away, or I would be standing 7 feet away from the person, where my dog is at least a foot away from the guest. Of course, I'm not going to have my dog be at the end of their leash. I would have them a little bit shorter. So say you have them on 3 feet. Sorry, Ellie was crying at the door. I had to let her in. I left her out, and she didn't want to be out of anything. So if I'm not going to have a dog be standing like 6 or 7 feet away from me. I'm going to have them maybe on like a 3 or 4 foot leash. Even if you have them on a 2-foot leash, either way, wherever they are, have the dog at least a foot away from the guest or 2 feet away from the guest, in case they jump on their back feet. As soon as the dog goes to jump, they go to jump up, I'm going to walk backwards and have the dog take a couple steps back with me until they put 4 feet on the floor again. When they have 4 feet on the floor, then I will reward them or I will allow them to be pet by the guest. The goal for the dog is to be able to say hello to the guest and be pet by the guest. Excuse you. Don't go. Sorry, Ellie's muting the mic. Of course, she has to get right in the middle of everything. Scoochies. Don't go mute the mic again. So the goal for the dog is that they want to... Excuse you. You're such a weirdo. Yes, I know. I love you too. You're getting hair all over the mic. Alright, here, you just sit. Good girl. So the goal for the dog is that they want to be able to say hello to the guest. Their goal is that they get petted by the guest, they get to play with the guest, they get to sniff the guest, they get to say hello. So my goal is, if you're going to be jumping dog, then you don't get to say hello to the guest. You have to wait until you have 4 feet on the floor, which makes no sense to... Sorry, Ellie's rubbing against my face. She's all sorts of cuddlies this afternoon. I'm going to take away what the dog wants, which is interaction with the guest, which is still not a very... Excuse you. Which is still not a very normal behavior for the dog. Sorry, Ellie's just messing with the mic all over the place. And even so, having 4 feet on the floor is not normal for the dog. They want to be able to, it's not a natural behavior for the dog to sit politely and totally ignore something new and just be, like Hassan's dog over in the corner there, just, on the place board for hours on end. It's not normal for a dog to just sit there and be totally polite. That's a human's concept. So although we can teach it, and although we should teach our dogs to be able to do that, we can teach them without using force. We have to understand that, we have to give the dog something, so what's in it for the dog for them to get to behave the way we want them to behave. And what's in it for them is either rewards from from being petted by the stranger or the guest or their best friend. It could be treats. It could be petting from the owner. It could be releasing the dog to go play with the guest, or go play with their best friend if it's a dog, whatever. But we have to make sure that we keep this in mind, because if we just expect the dog, or the other option is that we force the dog through painful corrections, or we knee them in the chest, or punch them in the head, or we tie them up somewhere, or we remove them from the room every time they start jumping on the guest, then we could take them and remove them as a sort of timeout. If I had a dog that was really, really bad, then I might do that. But generally, I just have a dog on leash, and I'm able to control the dog that way. That as soon as they try to jump on the guest, I move back a couple of steps, so the dog moves back. They have 4 feet on the floor, then they're able to say hello to the guest again. So let's see how Beckman is going to explain this.
Jumping. There's a lot of ways to deal with it. The purely positive folks are going to say, have your guest.
It's positive reinforcement, not purely positive. He tries to spread this as if we never use corrections. I use corrections. It's just there's as one of my viewers, always says that they get really upset about the specific, the word correction is thrown around so much by trainers of all sorts of types. Excuse you. Corrections they're on a spectrum. Okay, so for me, a correction would be walking the dog back a few steps, removing them from the situation, removing them, getting them further from the guest, which is what they want. That's a correction. A correction by Joel might be kneeing them in the chest. A correction by him might be popping them on the collar. A correction could be a prong collar. It could be an e-collar. Even on a shot collar, you can have a level of correction that is very low on a 2, or you could have a level of correction on a 50 or 60 or 70. And it's going to be painful no matter what, otherwise it wouldn't work anyway. But, each dog might be different. They might react differently towards each correction. But nevertheless, there's still corrections. So positive reinforcement, folks, do use corrections, just not at all in the way that, not at the level that people like Joel will use, or American Standard Dog Training, or Tom Davis might use, or all these other trainers might use, that use harsher corrections. Excuse you.
Come in, drop treats all over ground. There's other ways.
That is a method that you can use. That's not something that I would do. There's something that you can do, but that's not something that I would do. I would use a leash, and that might be too harsh for other positive reinforcement trainers. Some positive reinforcement trainers might call me a balance trainer because I might use a leash and use a little bit of leash pressure. It just depends on each individual.
Where you're going to have a prong, you're going to correct them. There's a way that I'm okay with, which is the dog jumps on, just like that. Look at this. You think this dog isn't a jumper? This dog is jumping up on this.
Well, you can teach them not to do that. This is a natural behavior for this dog, or it's a learned behavior for this dog. It doesn't mean that this is a crazy dog. Oh my God, look at this dog. He's out of control. That's just silly. Joel exaggerates so much into making you believe that this dog is so out of control, so it excuses his technique, to making you think that, you need to use his technique in order to teach this dog not to jump. Just put a leash on, or don't even put a leash on. When the dog is not jumping, then reward them. Call them to you. Give them a down, give them a sit, ask them to do these certain behaviors. If they go and jump on the door, then I would call them away and teach them an alternate behavior. When they're not jumping on the door, because they're not jumping on the door constantly, there is a second when they're not, then I would mark and reward that.
Yes, is hot, pretty good jump. You see how he's an up dog? Everything's up, up, up. This is a jumper, okay? So I'm gonna show you my by far favorite way. It's called the leash step-on method. There's nuance to it. You're not gonna hold the dog on the ground. You are going to give the leash some distance.
So he wants the dog to pop themselves on the leash. That's what he wants. So he's no different than using a prong collar. He's just not using a prong collar.
space so that they correct themselves.
You're still correcting them. It's not them correcting themselves because you put them in this situation. You put the leash on them. You put the collar on them. You stepped on the leash. You put them in the situation where they're going to want to go to their favorite person and you step on the leash and they pop. They get a pop. They're not correcting themselves. It's still you correcting them. I mean, for some dogs that are really, really bad jumpers on myself, I will have somebody else hold them. Or there's been cases where I will step on the leash myself. If I have a dog that is jumping and biting at me and I don't have another room to put them in, I don't have a baby gate to put them behind, I will step on a leash. It's not my favorite method, but if I need to absolutely get control of a dog that's jumping and nipping and going crazy and putting holes in my shirt and nipping me and pinching my skin and all that, I'll step on their leash. And then we will until we can figure out something else to do. And then I might tether them on a bungee leash, onto, a heavy piece of furniture or something, and then I can, go from there. So I'm not about this, never tethering a dog but I'm not about popping a dog or if they do run to the end of the leash, which is not the goal, which is why I like a bungee leash. I don't want them to run to the end of the leash and pop themselves. If they do end up doing that, then I admit that it's my fault that happens, and I try to prevent that from happening. When you have a really jumpy dog, I can admit that it can be a problem. It can be really annoying. For me, I don't like a dog to jump all over me. For some people, they don't care. But when it comes to me as a trainer, I try to use other opportunities, other options to work with the dog, so I don't have to just step on the leash and the dog is popping themselves and whatnot.
I don't like to correct dogs.
Yes, you do. That's an absolute lie. You absolutely like to. That's why you set them up for failure so much. Yes, you do like to correct dogs.
Dog corrects itself. That's the greatest thing in the world.
So he likes to correct dogs, and he likes to claim that they are correcting themselves, and he says that's the greatest thing in the world. You are the one who is correcting them because you put them in the situation. You put the leash on them. You're the one who taught them, or you didn't teach them, but you're the one who is allowing this to happen. You're setting them up for failure.
Vary and can change its behavior to no longer give itself a correction. Carly, are you ready? Okay, hold on. I'll tell you when to come in. So what you're going to do, you have to know when your guests are coming over. Okay?
That I can agree with. Yes, know when your guests are coming over. Have a leash by the door. Have your dog with the harness on for a couple hours throughout the day. Or just have their collar ready and have a leash ready at the door. So that way when your guests are coming over, then go ahead and leash them up.
Then you are simply the heaviest person in your household is going to step on the leash.
Look at how controlling he is already. He acts like this dog is so out of control. The dog is totally fine. It just doesn't like being trapped with, a 2-inch leash.
Perfect dog.
Okay, he already popped it there. He already corrected it there. Let's go back and look at that.
Perfect
Watch
dog.
when he's right here. Pop.
It's the perfect dog to show
Pop.
you guys
3 pops.
control.
He's not going to tell you that you just popped the dog 3 times there. A lot of people are not going to notice that. A lot of people are not going to count that as a pop. Those are all 3 corrections for the dog. Whether the dog cares about them, it depends. The dog seems to be calming down, so it seemed enough of a pop to correct the dog. To stop the dog from being as crazy.
Here's what you're not going to do. Are you going to step on the leash here? No. Look it. Watch the jump. He's going to be able to get all the way up. Give about 6 inches.
So what happened in that cut? Maybe he cut because there was a plane in the background. Maybe he was waiting for the plane to go by. I'll give him that much. But the dog could have jumped in his face and he kneed it, or he punched it, or he could have done whatever. I don't know. I don't trust people who have a lot of cuts in their videos. Some people cut for time. Some people cut because there was a loud noise in there. But I want to know why there was a cut.
Of leash. So now, if the dog jumps, he is going to jump, correct, jump, correct, jump, correct. Carly, come on in. Come right up to the dog, please.
Now, I will admit, I used to do this. And for some dogs, if they're really bad and jumping and going crazy, I will do this. but I prefer to do it on the front of a harness or on their collar. And my goal is not for them to be jumping really high and correcting themselves. So this dog is not getting, as bad of a pop as I would have thought. And in some cases, I will do this if I absolutely have to, but that's only in emergency cases. So this is not as bad as I was thinking that he was going to give the dog, he was going to step on I thought he was going to let the dog run. He was going to step on the leash. The dog was going to have like 6 feet of leash to pop themselves. So this is a little bit different, but still not my favorite thing to do. This is not my first go-to when I'm working on a dog, jumping on leash.
Bobby? Hey, how are you?
So reward, they could be rewarding. They should be rewarding.
Jump correct.
So
jump
she's setting this dog up for failure by clapping her hands and getting him to jump up. I would have the guests come in. I would have them ignore him. And I would say, ignore him while he's standing here. I would just hold on to the leash. I don't need to step on it like this. He doesn't need to be tied down like this. I don't think he does. I would just say, ignore the dog. I might give them, the instructions to turn your back if he jumps on them. And I would walk him away with the leash. I think walking him away would be the best option to do for him instead of having to have him jump and correct.
Jump correct. Perfect. Jump correct. Jump correct.
Oh,
Then she's going to pet
Because then he's going to rely on being tethered down this way. That's why I don't like this method, because the dog is going to rely on being controlled the whole time. If I'm holding onto the leash, I can control how tight it is, how loose it is. If the dog jumps, then I'm just going to walk them away. And they learn that more. They learn that, I feel like, quicker than having to be held down by something. Jumping can, if the dog is jumping on you, that's one thing. There's different protocol for that. But, if the dog is jumping on another guest, it's a little bit easier when they're not jumping on you and going crazy, because you could just walk them away. It's pretty simple.
dog when he made a choice to not jump.
But he's still sitting there on a tight leash. He's still being tethered down. He knows he's being tethered down. I would rather the dog learn that they can be on a loose leash and eventually no leash at all to be pet by somebody. I would rather the guest ignore them until the dog is calm. Then you can give them attention, but give them calm attention. Don't get all lovey-dovey over them to set them up for failure, because they're going to want to jump afterwards. So I don't want to have to rely on tethering a dog down just so that you can lovey-dovey-dove on them and get them all super excited, but they know that they're being tied down.
Your guest is going to pet the dog when they make a choice not to jump.
Yes.
And reinforce. Good. Reinforce the no jumping, and the dog is getting a correction for the jumping. There was like 6 of them in succession. Then, when the guest is in the house, sit.
The dog was sitting. You didn't reward. Does his little tap.
Sit.
Does his other tap. Pop.
He's
pop,
not getting off. He's not getting
pop,
off when he's
pop,
doing this backup thing. I don't
pop,
care that he's sad.
pop,
I don't
pop.
care that he wants to see Carly.
Pop.
Sit.
Pop.
I don't care that he's worked up. None of this matters to me. You have a major...
I would have him drag that leash around. I would not say that, because I guarantee this dog is going to be jumping again. And if he's this wiggly, then I'm going to have him drag this leash around. I'm not worried about them sitting calmly for removing the leash. I mean, that's just me. Like, if it's a crazy dog, yeah, I'll have them sit. He's backing up because he wants to be by her, because he gets more reinforcement from her than he does from him. All dogs hate him. I'm sure a lot of dogs love her because she's not as abusive as he is. So he wants to go. If he wanted to go over there, that's fine. I don't care that he backs up and goes and sits by her. I would release the leash then anyway. But he's all super controlling. He thinks he has to have everything the way he wants it because he has opposable thumbs and he's a spoiled brat of a human. So, he's going to pop the dog another 16 times before it sits down to unleash the dog, when I don't think the dog is ready to be unleashed.
Problem with your dog going nuts with guests. You got to get control. Okay. Then he gets released. Let's see if there's a jump in there. There might be. Come over here, Carly. There was 6 tries from Bobby.
See, she's not lovey-dovey on him as much as she was before. So that's what they're not telling you, is before you have to rely on the leash being tethered down when you're going to be all lovey-dovey on him, because he's more likely to jump afterwards. Then she just gave him one little quick pat and then she left him alone before he got overstimulated. They're not telling you that. They're not explaining that to you, which I think is really important for them to explain to you so you know exactly what's going on.
He corrected himself on all 6.
She knows what she's doing. She pets him a little bit and she stops before he jumps.
And then a sit and a pet. He has not technically jumped on her. He tried 6 times.
There she gave him a lovey-dovey.
But we used this. It eliminated the behavior. He has not jumped on her 1 time. And I did not tell you.
She's also being wary of when he's overstimulated. So this alone, does this work? Yes, it works. Is it necessary? I don't think so, unless you have a really, really jumpy dog. And even then, I think it'd be more beneficial to just have the person walk the dog away, move the dog away, have her go back outside, and the dog is behind this baby or this gate here. Although I wouldn't have the gate so high. I mean, I get why he has the gate so high so a dog doesn't jump over it. But I would rather have like a baby gate. Something tall enough, something maybe not tall enough to where the dog is going to want to jump up to see what's on the other side. And if it is tall enough to where the dog wants to jump, then okay, we'll work on that. We'll work on it. I'll work with anything. It doesn't really matter. But I would rather if the person is going to come in and the dog is going to be jumping and they're going to be really bad, then when I have the dog, go, or not the dog, I'm going to have the person go back outside and we're going to just try this all over again. And I do this with a couple of doodles every Friday. I've been working with a pair of doodles for, going on 6 weeks now. And we've been working on that. We work on place. We work on loose leash walking. We work on a lot of things with them. But one of the things is them jumping up on guests. So now when I go in, if they start jumping, then I have the owners walk them away or I will walk away. When I increase distance, the doodles stop jumping. And they're puppies. They're 2 puppies, like much younger, smaller puppies than this guy. So either way, that's just what I would do. That's what he's doing. Let's see what he has to say.
I did not tell you to give your guests a bunch of instructions of walking in and taking their space back. It was mainly done by you and a leash, and it was my favorite way to deal with jumping.
So not my favorite way. I think that there could be better ways, that he could have handled it. But that just does it for this video. I've given you some ways that I might have done it. That's his way of his doing it. It is a simple way to stop a dog from jumping, but I don't think it's going to really work long term. I think you're going to have to rely on that. And I know that because I've done that before. And you really do have to rely on stepping on the leash over and over and over again versus just walking the dog away, rewarding the dog, using reinforcement. When the dog does what you want, reinforce them for that. When they do what you don't want, you need to change that behavior, but you don't need to necessarily correct that behavior. You are correcting it by removing the dog, but it's not like a correction that's like, where it's necessarily going to, it's not an instant correction where the dog is going to stop that behavior instantly because it's such a harsh correction. Like, I'm not popping the dog on a leash. I'm not shocking them with a shock collar at a high level to stop them, one and done. It's not a one and done type thing. I'm not a one and done type trainer. I take time to educate the dog and work with the dog on dog time. So let me know what you think of the video. Go say how to do your little critters. Say how to do for me. Give them some kind of love and they appreciate. Until next time, practice peace, patience, and positivity.